Balance and design are super important obviously with a strategy game like Hearthstone Battlegrounds, so for this video I'm going to share with you some cards that I think are really well designed and poorly designed. I took 2 cards from each different tier, but let's start off with some heroes. Starting off with Curiel, Queen Whack Toggle, and Guff. These are just heroes with very boring hero powers that all of them give you 1 gold for some buffs, like +1/+1 buffs on the board, and as the game progresses it becomes more but caps out at a certain point. It is very like streamlined, boring. In lower ranks it's decent because you just press 1 gold for some stats and scaling, which does well there, but in high ranks these barely see play just because of how bad they are and because of how irrelevant it is to spend the gold for that amount of stats. So I just think these heroes are not super interesting to play and they're all very look-alike. I'm not a big fan of it. Next up, George. I think George is too polarizing. Like, you either get a full board of Divine Shields and you just like are much stronger than all of your opponents, especially with like the Gem Splitter on tier 3. This card is still a thing. I don't know why. It should definitely be removed. It makes no, or at least put it to a higher tier. The single card allows George to just snowball into these insane comps. And the best way to beat him is of course finding a Ghoul. If you don't find Ghoul, you're screwed. But Ghoul is not in the game anymore. Right now you need Tunnel Blaster, which is a 4-drop, making it even harder to find. So the fact that, yeah, you need a Tunnel Blaster to beat him or you're kind of screwed is just annoying. Shadowwalker is poorly designed. I don't think I need to explain this, but in short, in higher ranks he plays completely broken and different than people from lower ranks and how it was intended. I'm pretty sure the devs intended, like how the majority plays it, is just buying battle cries, getting strong, using shuttling for that momentum, tempo, whatever. But in high ranks people just wanted tokens like Tidehunter, which is not in the game anymore, and Alley Cat, that you just play those, get a bunch of triples with shuttlings, and you have multiple 6 drops on like turn 6 or 5. Super toxic, and the only way that they found a solution to this is by not offering Shadowwalk in beast lobbies, which has been a patch I think last week or something, which is not very like a clean solution, I would say. Yeah. Shadowwalker is just a mess. The last hero I wrote down is Taz, because Taz is another hero that is super polarizing. Either like when a new meta hits or a new tribe like Naga, then Taz is just gonna steal all the Naga from all the players that are forcing it because it's just good and broken, and you have the Taz winning the lobby with like multiple golden Naga on the board. And then in metas like these where it's like more flexible, people are playing whatever, Taz is trash. She sees no play because you either get a face someone that hits really well, yoink it, or you just do nothing for the rest of the game and yeah, you're screwed. So I don't think Taz is like a hero that is consistent at all, and I think you kind of hate facing Taz at certain points or playing her as well. Onto some good heroes. First I want to mention Cookie and Gallywix. I put them in the same bucket as well because their hero power is pretty similar, but because these are flexible, they allow you to take multiple different leveling curves early game. They allow you to set up for any kind of strategy that you want. Depending on the tribes, you might want to level more aggressively, discover from certain tiers, or discover in certain tribes with Cookie. So I think both of these heroes are pretty well designed in the sense that you have to figure out every time what you kind of want to do with them, and that makes for, you know, variable play, makes for an exciting game most of the time. And also Gallywix has more options than just discovering a card. You can like make the level cheaper, or do the attack, which is kind of shit, don't do that, but you can make the level cheaper and then come up with some cool strategies as well. Gallywix and Omu I also put in the same bucket because they're economy heroes, usually heroes that can like grant you gold, are interesting and better in higher ranks than in lower ranks, because, you know, extra economy does open a lot of different lines as well. Do you want to level aggressively? Do you want to buy another card? What is the play here? And you got to think ahead of how much money am I gonna have. So I think they just increase the skill floor quite a bit and the skill ceiling. And with Gallywix you just, you know, start building up momentum, start snowballing. You gotta think about when do you buy and sell, when is it worth it. And with Omu as well, how do you level, how do you make your money work? I think heroes that kind of like have to activate your actual brain to play the game, you actually have to think about your turns, they're pretty well designed, I would say. They're not like broken anyway, because in lower ranks they have a very low win rate because they're pretty hard to pilot. So I think it's fine for them to be slightly stronger in higher ranks. Mutant is also, I think, it's not a great hero, but it's super fun and well designed. I think it's one of the best designed heroes. Just like such a unique hero power and play style. I think you can play this hero completely different from all the others, and I think then you did a great job. If you can make a hero that just feels fresh, feels so different and not unplayable, you know, I kind of like it. Now the buddy is gone. I think Business with the buddy was really fun, probably too strong. Without buddy it's pretty weak, but maybe if you go into more of a tempo-ish meta, maybe we'll see Mutants do, you know, some sick plays again. And then the last hero is Yogg. Yogg has just been a hero that has been part of the game since its launch, right? Since Battlegrounds was a thing, Yogg was there. and he has consistently been okay. He's never been OP. Maybe at the start he was really strong. He's never been like really weak. He always can just see play, and that's a sign or an indication of a well-designed hero, because the hero power gives you kind of economy because it's 2 gold instead of 3 gold for a card, even though it's random. Kind of gives you tempo because the random +1/+1. So you kind of gotta make it work. The hero power doesn't give you direction, doesn't give you something to win the game with. It just gives you a tool to slightly get ahead of others if you use it properly. So I like Yogg. Yeah. Now onto a card from every single tavern tier. On tier 1 I wrote down Silverback Patriarch. I don't think that needs an explanation. That card is just boring. Like, we got a random extra beast on tier 1. It's a 1/4 taunt. I don't think anyone asked for this. We don't need it. Now, properly designed card I would say is Elemental, because I think it's the best designed token. It's just a 2/2, right? A 2/2 is very low stats on the board, so having to sacrifice, you know, any sort of tempo to play a 2/2, lose health, just to get that extra gold, I think is a fair trade-off. And also the way that it works, like the fact that you can get 2 triples with this elemental body and then this elemental token, the fact that you can sell it off, manage hand space. I think elemental just works really well. I was really happy when I first saw that card released with elementals, and I think it has some cool interactions as well, like with Major Domo. I just like the card. I think it's all around a well-designed card. Now, a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Firestone, which is a deck tracker that I'm currently using. The amount of stats that this offers is pretty insane. From, of course, seeing when you're gonna get 99% lethal, to all the minions that are in the lobby, additional stuff like your lost opponent's board, and a bunch of other overlay features like seeing when opponents level and triple. And then the application itself, where you can see your previous fights. You can simulate all of these battles and see the outcome if you would change something. You could track your MMR. You can see perfect boards and perfect games from other people, and my game is included that I had yesterday. There's a lot of things here to explore and to mess around with. If you want to try it out yourself, it's completely free as well. Check the link in the description below. Back to the video. One of the other bad design cards is Cookie Chemist. Now, the idea seems cool. I like the idea of swapping attack and health with Cookie Chemist. I think that's a cool interaction to have in the game, and it allows for a lot of plays that previously were not possible. But it broke so many things. We need to have, like, we got Chroma Wing removed just because of the single card. We're getting a lot of heroes patched because of it, like Vandar and Drektar with their hero powers with this was also kind of stupid. And the fact that with gems, like, this is another interaction. If you put gems onto something, then swap these stats, the stats become permanent, so you can still use Necrolite to put the gems from that card onto something else. So there's this, like, a lot of these interactions that kind of just break the card and don't really do what it's meant to do or what it's intended to do, which is just kind of like swap the stats. Cool, neat interaction. So that's why I think it's poorly designed, because it came with a lot of extra flaws that I don't think were meant to be introduced in the game. Now, a proper design card on tier 2, I took Welp Smuggler because it's the first kind of early scaling that we see for dragons. It was broken when it first got released, but that's mainly because of bugs. But now it's a fine card. It's a 2/5 body, it's a neutral, and it has mainly a lot of interactions. Like, the reason why I choose some of these cards as well designed is because they're flexible with a lot of different interactions. Like with gems, for example, if you have a dragon, you just gem it up and you have Welp Smugglers, it becomes like a battle master, gets a lot of health. Or in Major Domo, or yeah, it just has a bunch of ways to, like, in the mid game, get some beefy dragons, and nothing crazy either. I just really think the card is properly designed. Yeah, another fun interaction is like Peggy and then Amalgam, and then this card, and you just build a really big Amalgam with a lot of health. That's also something that I was fond of doing. Tier 3, poorly designed card, Khadgar. We barely see Khadgar. You never really just take it if you find it in the shop. The only thing Khadgar does is break things. When it first really saw players with the Khadgar brand token interaction, where you just play tokens with Khadgar, so you get a lot of triples early on, the Khadgar transitions. Incredibly broken, so that kind of got patched. But Khadgar only sees play with, like, Scallywag comp, so Scallywag Baron. It's like very niche. You rarely play it for tempo. Like, sometimes if you have some sort of Death Rattle-ish comp, you could see a Khadgar on the board, or if you're Janus with a token. But these are niche situations. Other than that, the card is kind of just dead on tier 3. I think it just doesn't do enough. It's just too specific, like, broken cases that it is applied to. Now, a better card on tier 3 is a Bristleback Brute. I think this card is really cool because it just it starts scaling early on, but it is just a stat pile, and that is not that great late game. So even if you have a big Bristleback Brute in the mid late game, it just loses to a Divine Shield, to a Cleave, to a Poison, whatever. But what makes this card interesting is that it's super flexible again. Like with Necrolite, you can put the stats of these onto any other card, suddenly making the stats from just a mid-game stat pile, which is good enough in the mid-game, to something more viable in the late game. And it also makes for decisions like when you power level to tier 3 with a Sunbacon, for example, you might ask yourself, am I holding these gems in hand? Because if I hold these gems in hand, I could find a Brute next turn and put them on them. Well, if you play them right now, you might find a Brute and not have anything to put on. So it just allows for, again, a lot of like things to think about, a lot of lines to consider, and it flows beautifully from early to mid to late game. I like it. Therefore, a poorly designed card is Promo Drake, because it's again a card that only enables like one thing, and that is Targosa. Other than that, Promo Drake is one of the worst dragons in the game, I think. It's just you play it, it's just stats. It's just stats. That's it. It's on the board. You would almost prefer any other dragon over it. So the only reason they put it in the game is for Targosa scaling. But Targosa is a well-designed card because Targosa scales with promo, but also with like spawn, with Trickster, obviously. There's all these other interactions that make Targosa a really fun card and a flexible card to play with. Unlike Promo Drake, the counterpart that has no other real things that you can do with it. Now, a properly designed card I think is utramedes. It's not that strong right now just because dragons suck. It's a really cool solution to how they wanted to nerf Prester, because Prester was obviously pretty bullshit, but this card allows for, you need to scale it up still. So it is a cool tech card. You could just put it in the front and it kind of just removes 3 shields. It's like a mini ghoul. I think that's pretty cool in itself already. But if you actually scale it up, that's when you see the value in it, because then you can just trade any Divine Shield taunt your opponent has. But that's a lot of effort. I think this card is like a beautiful example of if you really want to counter certain things, you have that like possibility, but it's not just plug and play like Prester and then suddenly your Chroma Wing just kills whatever on the board, if that makes sense. Tier 5, Sephin. I don't like the card. I think poison should not be able to spread across the entire board. You just need this one card and you suddenly can build a full poison comp, a full scam comp, which is just a thing in itself that already wins games. I don't think a single 5-drop should enable something like that. Or just, this can give poison to itself, but then again to like 6 other Murlocs on the board. Even though it has Avenge 4, you kind of have to set up for it or kind of gotta get lucky. It's too much power and too much bullshit in one card that I think I would still like to see it reworked from the Avenge triggers into something else. Battle Master, on the other hand, on tier 5, I think is better designed, because that card, you just slap it on the board when you're behind. It's like a beautiful comeback mechanic that has been the game as well since the beginning and is still here for a good reason. It's just whenever you're low on health, this perfectly translates into a big demon. Should help you stabilize as long as your opponent isn't like too strong or has poison or whatever. So Battle Master is a nice comeback mechanic. You can build on it, you can triple it, eat it with Soul Devourer, whatever. Yeah, just does what it's intended to do. It works for players that are weaker. So you don't, at least when you triple into a 5 and hit Battle Master, you don't feel too bad when you're behind. I think it just does its job. Now on tier 6, a poorly designed card I think is Goldrin. I think Goldrin is the lamest way to scale a comp ever. So out of all the tribes that we have, all the ways that you can build up a board, I think Goldrin is just the most boring and lame, because all you have to do is just play this on the board. You get +5/+5, and then you kind of know what you have to do. You need to roll your shops, and you either need to hit Barons, Reborns, Taunts, or Macaws. And then just proper beasts like Hydra, non-deathable beasts on the board. And that's it. That's what you're doing the entire game. You're just rolling and looking for these specific cards. And if you hit them, if you triple them, you'll be strong. If you don't, you're kind of screwed. So I think Beast is just too boring and streamlined as well. I think Goldrin is just the kind of direction that I don't like playing for that particular reason. It's also easy to counter, like a big win for your Cleave or a Zap if you don't play around it. Just completely destroys it. So I really still don't like playing Goldrin and the way that the comp is formed. And then onto the final card I'm going to mention, the properly designed 6-drop, is felbat. The reason why is because, well, compared to Goldrin, felbat gradually scales up, and it has a lot of interactions as well. Like, you can just play this on the board with a couple demons, with full demons. You can play 2 felbats and 1 more demon. You already eat the entire shop. You can buff your shop with elementals, with Nomi or Dazzling Light spawn, and get even more like stats from eating your shop, which I think is just a really cool interaction, honestly, like an elemental demon combo. It can fit a menage, or you can play it solo on the board. I don't think it's too strong. I think felbat is also like not one of the stronger directions of scaling, but I think it's just a piece that you can have and build around and kind of like see where it heads towards. There used to be a time where felbat was actually the strongest direction and scaling on tier 6. I don't think that's the case anymore, but I do think it is one of the better designed ones that allows for a lot of different ways to approach it and to look at it. And those are, in my opinion, some of the better and worse designed cards in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Now again, I'm not the designer, this is just my personal take on how I feel the game plays. I don't want to try to stalk any designers. I just thought this was a fun little video to make, to give my 2 cents on, you know, the state of the game. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next one. If you want to see one big mistake that you are probably making for every single hero, click on the video on the screen right now.